They say you get a shot of dopamine whenever you complete anything. I filled my entire notebook before I was done actually writing my book. So that's a nice shot of dopamine. Hi there, welcome to episode 31 of Yarns and Yarns. My name is Shay McIntosh Ford and I live in Tulsa with my husband, our two boys, and our little puppy. This is a show about yarns as in stories and yarns as in fibers. I am an author of historical fiction and historical fantasy, but you're not going to be able to find my books anymore. They have now come down. My publisher suspended operations and reverted all the rights back to the authors. Eventually I will get it back up, but I'm gonna have to self-publish. It's gonna have a new cover though. I'm gonna need a new intro. Along with spinning yarns with my pen, I like to work with yarns. Eventually I will get into spinning. I'll be doing a book review, going into some of the books that I'm currently reading, then go into my bookish topic for the week, and after that I will talk about all the fibery things, which will be mostly knitting. I also do crochet and cross stitch as well. If you're just here for the fibery content, I have a timestamp down below if you'd like to just skip ahead. All books, yarns, patterns, anything I can link to will be down below in that description box. This one was my favorite because it comes from Hamlet, which is my favorite of the plays. He is very proud, revengeful, ambitious, with more offenses at his beck than he has thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them shape, or time to act them in. I think he needs to sort out his priorities. I read The Secret of Drulea Cottage, book 1 of Betwixt the Sea and Shore. This was written by Claire Kohler, and it was first published this past August. Guys, I highly recommend this book. This is her debut novel. This book has a solid story that is absolutely steeped in mystery. And because I don't want to accidentally give away any spoilers, I will simply read the blurb and then expand on my thoughts. Bryony Fairborn, a midwife in 18th century Scotland, comes from a family shrouded in scandal. Left with only one friend after her mother's death, she has little hope of gaining any others, let alone finding a husband. Instead, Bryony tries to live a quiet life and avoid her neighbors' ridicule as much as possible. But things in her hometown take a drastic turn when a storm brings foreigners to Everton's shore. On the night Santiago Mendez arrives, he comes with a broken ship, a broken leg, and a broken spirit that Bryony finds herself profoundly drawn to. Her scarred heart slowly starts to open, and although Bryony suspects he may be hiding something, she can't help but dream of the possibility of love. That is, until another stranger appears in town, intent on repaying a childhood debt. A dangerously handsome stranger who calls to the magic in Bryony's blood, and who holds the secret of her past. But once the truth unravels, Bryony will have to decide where her loyalties lie. Will she be Everton's salvation or its destruction? Not only do we as readers get a good feel for the culture and the customs of the time and place, Kohler provides brief, handy little footnotes for those things that most of us, especially American readers, just would not understand. I'm glad she did this, because trying to incorporate all of that into the narrative would bog it down. The mystery of the sea and how it affects Bryony is woven so well throughout the whole narrative. It gives the book a wholeness that makes you want to keep reading. I was on the last chapter yesterday and my son kept interrupting me and I'm like, William, just give me 15 more minutes. Stop talking. And as I said when I first started reading this book, like the week before last, the only distracting part for me was too many exclamation marks. And that's probably just me. I would like to have seen a bit more deeper description in some areas. For the most part, she does a great job of putting you right in the scene. But there are some sections where I feel like there could have been a little bit more added on like the sounds or the smells to really place me in the scene, but the writer slash editor in me is probably just being a little bit too nitpicky. On the whole, very well done, especially for a debut novel. And if you're like me and you love Scottish lore and culture, I definitely recommend that you read this one. I'm still reading European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman. This is written by Theodora Goss, and it was first published in 2018. I've been caught up with The Secrets of Drulea Cottage and haven't really been doing much with this one. I am going to get more reading of it done this week though. Still enjoying it. So the other two books that I started are very much related to the book that I'm writing. The first one is The Cherokee Strip by Marquis James. I only just started it, so I think I'm in the second chapter. I have to suspend my frustration at the N-word used in this book, such was the times. This was first published in 1945. It's like his memoir of when he was a little boy, and it starts in 1893. So yes, the times. You definitely have to read these kind of things with a certain perspective. But my story takes place in 1899. This starts in 1893. This will kind of help when I go to do my editing and my revising. It will help me kind of pull the culture of the day into my book. That's the purpose for reading this one. And that's basically what I'm getting so far is culture, mannerisms, the way they lived. I probably should have read this before I started writing my book, but it'll be easy enough to just go back through and edit things in. When I was planning my novel, I did not have time to read this. In fact, I had to wait for it. I was on hold at the library. I need to finish this before the library takes it back. The other book I'm reading is not in print, and so I am reading it through the Library of Congress, so it's free, and I will link it down below for you. It's like they took pictures of the pages, and you have to just click through to the next page and remember where you were. But this is a book called Guy Rivers, A Tale of Georgia. And this was written by William Gilmore Simms, and it was first published in 1834. I am reading the 1885 reprinting of this book. I wasn't going to, but I figured I'd better. I see why it was not reprinted. It's not like Dickens or Lucy Maud Montgomery or any of those great classic writers. I mean, it's okay. He just waxes on about the scene and, setting it up. I'm like, within the first 10 pages, all it is about the landscape and the appearance of the traveler, Guy Rivers. I mean, it just on and on and on. Talk about purple prose. I will keep reading because I'm reading from a modern perspective. The fact that this story was reprinted tells me that back then it was worthy of a reprinting and people enjoyed the story. And the only reason why I know people enjoyed the story is because I read about it while I was researching my book. So this would have been a story that my character would be interested in. Two of my characters actually. One recommends the story. And if you want to read it, go for it. Hopefully it gets better. But yeah, the writing is just indicative of the times. It's definitely not a modern story. I'm waiting for the action to start. So I only just started. In the Library of Congress pictures of the book, I am on image 25, but for the book itself, I'm on page 19. So I'm not that far in, and hopefully it will get better. But I definitely need to read it because I need her perspective of the story, how it relates to her travels, so that I can incorporate some more realism into my story and more of the culture. I am very, very, very close to done. I really wanted to be done by the end of this month. It just wasn't going to happen. I had some days where I was just too tired, way too tired. And that has to do with my condition, lymphocytic colitis, which if you click this little eye, it'll link you to that playlist. But I had a nice dose of dopamine because I finished writing in all of the pages of this notebook. If you have ever read Blake Snyder's Save the Cat, that's the book that I read before I start any book anymore. While I'm plotting out my book, I will read that with my prospective book in mind. With the beat points of Save the Cat, I am in the whiff of death scene. So I am very, very close to the end. And I am so ready to finish because, first of all, this shot of dopamine really helps to get me motivated to get done. It's like, oh, I completed that. I need to complete something else now. My next notebook is this one that I picked up at TJ Maxx. And I have decorated it with my NaNoWriMo and Tulsa Writer Syndicate stickers. So I like this one because it has a pocket here. And there are sometimes things that I write down that need to go in the pockets. This is a page when we went to Helen, Georgia. This was like, I want to say this was 5 years ago. No, maybe 6 years ago. But we went to Helen, Georgia, and we went to the visitor center, and I found they gave me this for different restaurants that I could eat at that might be gluten-free. And so then we went to the tour of the Dahlonega gold mines, and that's where I was inspired to write a book about it. Once the tour was over, I just needed to jot down some notations about the tour and what I learned and some interesting tidbits. So that's what all of this is. I think we were at Chick-fil-A while the boys were playing in the playground. I wrote down what I thought should go in the book, and so I've kept it all this time, and that goes in the pocket of this little book. So I think from now on, when I do buy a writing book, it's gonna have at least one pocket in it. The one thing I do have to get used to is when I do a writing sprint, I can write about 500 words in 30 minutes. But these pages are different. The lines are closer, so I'm getting about a page and a third whenever I write in this book. But I've only done it a few times in this one, so I'm gonna have to get a better feel for how many pages hold 500 words so that I know I'm kind of hitting my mark when I do a writing sprint. I'm almost there. I didn't have anything like neatly planned out this week, unfortunately. I just want to finish writing. The first thing I'm going to show you is what is, obviously you've been seeing this whole episode, is my quasi scarf. It's my coziest memory blanket, and it is scarf size because I finished the last 3 squares, and I'm going to take my microphone off so that I can show it to you. Here we go. 3rd row is finished. Oh, I love it. I even finished weaving in the ends for this Franken square. I finally did that yesterday. This is, it's actually upside down. So this is the last 3 squares that I finished. This is the Red Rocks Felici socks. This is another Felici. I think this was the Desert Rose, this purple, the last of that. This part from here up was that mani-pedi yarn that I cut all the warm colors out of. And then I used up the last bit of the Cat Lady Blue Nile yarn, and I added Patton's Croy. I don't remember the colorway, but I made socks for hubby out of it. I actually like the way the brown and the blue go together. Came out really nice. I'm actually really tempted to put an I-cord border just on this anyway and keep it as a scarf, but I think I'm just gonna keep on going. If anything, I'll get the 4th row on and it'll be more like a stole. Even a 5th row. I'm just gonna keep adding rows. I really want a blanket. I might just make it a blanket. I don't know. I will say though that I think I'm going to not work on this for a while, only because I really need to get hubby's sweater done. I have plenty of mindless knitting with socks. I really just need to get these other whips done because they're languishing. There's no excuse not to get them done. It's going to be a scarf for a long time now. You won't see it for a while, but I do have an FO. These are my Felici socks, Summer Nights colorway. I love them. They are almost completely matching. There's a little extra orange on this heel and a little less blue at the end. And same with the toe. There's a little bit more orange on that toe. Almost came out completely matching. But I just love it. I love that blue and lavender together. So pretty. Very excited. And now that you've seen them, I can wear them. I did 64 stitches, 12 rounds of 2x2 rib, 70 rounds for the leg, 75 rounds for the foot with a afterthought heel. And I love it. Another beautiful sock for me. And of course I started on my next sock. So I have some mindless Carline knitting to do, and it is living in my sock bag, which is a Whiz Bags bag, and I'll link that down below. Show you the cake on the inside. So this is what I dyed up last week. This is what I'm calling the Journey of Gold and Stone, which is kind of fun because I'll put in this little eye linking to last week's episode where I accidentally dyed up a yarn to match my current writing whip. So I have knitting whips and writing whips. This is just the cuff and one row. It has the little lines of gold and little lines of this white stone-like color. Maybe better to see on this side. And it's surrounded by the purpley night because they travel at night. So I've got golden eyes and stony skin because she's albino, and they travel at night. And that's all in last week's episode. Once I finished the cuff, I put all my stitch markers here to not only mark the beginning of round because I cut off the tail, but also I put them in order. I start from the bottom. I'm only going to do 30 rounds of the leg before I move on to the heel. So I've got 2 green stitch markers to mark every 10 rounds. On the 30th round, I will be putting in my heel, and then I have 70 more green markers here for the foot. The rest of these white markers are where to cut in for the afterthought heel. That's what that's all about. I'm only doing 30 rounds for the leg because I'm hoping to have enough of this yarn to make a small, I should have enough to make a small pair for my niece. Especially since I'm not using this yarn for the heels and toes. The heels and toes are going to be in this purple. Going to be like the shorty socks that I failed on before. That way, definitely have enough of the hand-dyed yarn if I use this for the toes and cuffs. And I will do this for my niece as well because we're going to be twinsies. Hopefully she'll get some use out of it. You know, I want to make something for her that I think she'll enjoy, especially something that will match, you know, her aunt. They live in the Bahamas. So I definitely can't make hats and scarves anymore for them. They recently moved there and it's too hot for knitted stuff. And that's all I have for this week, and I want to finish now before the sun blows me out. I hope you get to read all the books and write all the words and work with all the fibers. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to put those down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye. I'm still reading European travel for lunch. I only just trying to get away from the sun here. Isn't it, Barbie?